Inspection Commander Zalketh had been doing this job for 23 years. In that time, he'd scanned exactly 47,289 vessels passing through Zeltharian space. Cargo haulers, passenger liners, military escorts, scientific expeditions. Every single one had submitted to the deep scan protocol without complaint. It was just how things worked in the Andromeda sector. The Zeltharian Empire controlled the main trade routes, and in exchange for safe passage, every ship allowed a complete scan. It was a fair arrangement that had kept the peace for 6,000 years. Scan, verify, approve passage, move on. Simple. So when human vessel ESS Nomad requested transit clearance on a Tuesday morning, Zalketh barely looked up from his breakfast. Humans, the new species, they'd only had faster-than-light capability for what? For 100 years? Babies in galactic terms. Another human ship, his second officer announced. Mid-size vessel. Claims to be on patrol duty. What kind of patrol? Zalketh asked, more out of boredom than actual interest. They didn't specify. Standard military transponder, though. Matches their registry. Zalketh finished his meal and walked onto the bridge of his inspection cruiser. Through the viewport, he could see the human ship hanging in space about 10,000 kilometers away. It looked unremarkable. Gray hull plating, similar to what most species used. Some visible weapon mounts on the exterior, nothing excessive. The ship was maybe 300 meters long, small by military standards. Hail them. Standard inspection protocol, he ordered. The communication officer opened a channel. A human appeared on the screen, wearing what looked like a military uniform, dark blue with silver insignia. He had short brown hair and looked to be in his 30s, though Zalketh had never quite figured out human aging. This is Captain Dylan Roberts of the ESS Nomad. Good morning, Commander. Captain Roberts, I am Inspection Commander Zalketh of the Zeltharian Empire. Your vessel is requesting passage through our space. This requires a standard deep scan. Do you consent? Dylan nodded easily. Of course. We've got nothing to hide. Scan away. Excellent. Please hold position and power down your weapons. The scan will take approximately 15 minutes. Understood. Powering down weapons now. The human ship's external weapons went dark. Zalketh's tactical officer confirmed they were indeed offline. Everything by the book. These humans seemed to understand how things worked. At least, begin deep scan protocol, Zalketh ordered, settling into his command chair. Full spectrum analysis. I want composition, cargo manifest, crew roster, power signatures, everything. His chief scanner technician, a young officer named Pelnox, activated the scanning array. The Zeltharian deep scan was the most advanced in the sector, possibly the most advanced in the galaxy. It could analyze a ship down to molecular level, detecting everything from weapons to contraband to hidden passengers. They developed it over thousands of years specifically to prevent smuggling and security threats. Nothing escaped the deep scan. Absolutely nothing. The data started flowing across Pelnox's screens. Hull composition, check. Power signatures, normal. Crew manifest showing 200 individuals, all accounted for. Cargo section showing. Pelnox leaned closer to his console. That's odd, he muttered. What is? Zalketh asked, not particularly concerned. Scans always showed odd things. Species had different ways of organizing their ships. The cargo section. It's reading as, I'm not sure what it is. Let me go deeper. The scan penetrated further into the Nomad's interior. Pelnox's fingers moved across his console, refining the analysis, focusing on the strange readings. Then his face changed. The boredom disappeared, replaced by confusion. Then the confusion became something else. Something that looked like fear. Sir, Pelnox said quietly, you need to see this right now. Zalketh stood and walked to the scanner station. Other bridge officers noticed a shift in Pelnox's tone and started paying attention. What did you find? Pelnox pulled up the detailed scan results on the main display. The image showed the interior of a human ship in perfect detail, and what it revealed made Zalketh's blood run cold. In the central section of the Nomad was a laboratory. But not just any laboratory. The scan identified biological material. Dozens of different pathogens, some natural, some clearly engineered. Genetic sequences that didn't match any known natural organisms. Chemical compounds designed for biological warfare. They're carrying weapons, Pelnox whispered. Biological weapons. Multiple strains, multiple delivery systems. But that wasn't the worst part. The crew manifest showed 200 personnel, but the scan revealed something the humans hadn't declared. 50 of those crew members were flagged differently by their own computer systems. They were listed in a separate database, labeled with a designation that the translator struggled to interpret. The closest translation came out as experimental subjects. Zalketh felt sick. The humans were running biological weapons experiments on living beings, on their own crew. How is this possible? His second officer asked. We scan every human ship that comes through here. We've never seen anything like this before. Because we've never done a full, deep scan on a human medical vessel before, Pelnox said, reading more data. The ship's designation says patrol, but the internal configuration is clearly medical research. Zalketh looked at the data again, hoping he'd misread it. He hadn't. The evidence was clear. Biological weapons. Living test subjects. All on a ship that had just casually requested passage through Zeltharian space, like it was carrying nothing more dangerous than spare parts. Contact High Command, Zalketh ordered, his voice hard. Priority alert. We have a human vessel carrying illegal biological weapons and conducting experiments on living beings. I need authorization to detain them immediately. His communication officer's hands shook as she opened the channel. On the view screen, Captain Dylan Roberts' face appeared again, looking relaxed and unconcerned. Everything okay over there, Commander? Scan taking longer than expected? Zalketh stared at the human. How could he look so calm? So casual? Did he not know they'd just discovered his crimes? Or worse, did he simply not care? Captain Roberts, Zalketh said slowly, I need you to answer a question very carefully. What exactly is your ship carrying? Dylan looked confused. Carrying? Standard supplies, medical equipment, research materials. Why? Did something show up weird on your scan? Medical equipment, research materials. The human said it like it was nothing, like biological weapons and live test subjects were just routine cargo. Zalketh realizing that scanning the Nomad had been a terrible mistake, because now he knew what was inside. And knowing meant he couldn't just let them go. And confronting humans about this, he had a feeling that was going to end very, very badly. Zalketh's hands were shaking as he contacted Zeltharian High Command. The response came within minutes. Admiral Threncole appeared on the screen, her expression shifting from annoyed to alarmed as Zalketh explained what the scan had revealed. Biological weapons? On a human patrol ship? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Multiple engineered pathogens. Chemical compounds designed for genetic targeting, and 50 crew members listed as experimental subjects in a separate database. Admiral Threncole was silent for a long moment. This is a Class 1 war crime. Multiple violations of the Galactic Biological Weapons Convention. I'm dispatching Battle Group 7 to your location. You are to quarantine that vessel immediately. No ships in or out. If they attempt to flee, disable them but do not destroy. We need that evidence intact. Understood, ma'am. Within the hour, 30 Zeltharian warships emerged from hyperspace, surrounding the Nomad in a perfect sphere. Their weapons were hot, shields at maximum. Captain Dylan Roberts' relaxed expression finally changed when he saw the fleet arrive. Commander Zalketh, what's going on? Why are there 30 warships pointing guns at my ship? Zalketh opened a broadcast channel, so all ships could hear. Captain Roberts, your vessel is hereby detained under galactic law, Section 447, Paragraph 12. You are charged with illegal possession of biological weapons and conducting experiments on living subjects without proper authorization. You and your crew are under arrest. Dylan's eyes widened. Wait, what? Biological weapons? We don't have any biological weapons. Your own skin data says otherwise, Zalketh replied coldly. We have detailed readings of your cargo holds. engineered pathogens, genetic weapons, chemical compounds designed to target specific species at the DNA level, and 50 experimental subjects currently aboard your vessel. Experimental subjects? Dylan looked genuinely confused. Then his expression changed. Realization dawned on his face, followed by something that shocked Zalketh completely. The humans started laughing. "Commander," Dylan said between chuckles. "Oh no. Oh, this is bad. You actually did a full deep scan, didn't you? Like a complete molecular level analysis?" "Yes, we did. And we found proof of your crimes." "They're not crimes." Dylan was still smiling, but now he looked concerned too. "Commander, I think we have a serious misunderstanding here. Those aren't biological weapons." "Well, okay, technically some of them could be used as weapons, but that's not what they're for." "Then explain what they are for." Dylan took a deep breath. "The Nomad is a medical research vessel. We're testing experimental treatments for diseases that affect humans. Those weapons you detected, they're therapeutic viruses, gene therapy agents, and targeted drug delivery systems. We're trying to cure cancer, genetic disorders, and degenerative diseases." Zalketh pulled up the scan data again. "And the experimental subjects? They're volunteers, crew members who have terminal illnesses and agreed to test our experimental treatments. Every single one of them signed consent forms. We have all the documentation. You experiment on your own crew?" Zalketh couldn't hide his disgust. "We give them a chance to live." Dylan shot back. "These people were dying. We offer them hope through cutting-edge medical research. Some of the treatments work. Some don't, but at least they have a choice." Zalketh instructed Pelnox to bring up the medical files in detail. What he saw made him feel physically ill. The files showed procedures that looked like torture. Humans cutting into each other with sharp instruments, injecting toxic chemicals directly into bloodstreams, using radiation to deliberately burn tissue, transplanting organs removed from dead bodies into living patients. One file detailed something called chemotherapy. The treatment involved poisoning the entire body to kill cancer cells, with acceptable side effects including hair loss, organ damage, immune system failure, and severe pain. The survival rate was listed as improving at 67%. Another showed open heart surgery. They stopped the patient's heart completely, cut open while the person was technically dead, made repairs, then restarted it. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes it didn't. "This is barbaric," Zalketh whispered, reading through procedure after procedure. "You're butchers. You treat your own people like experimental animals." "We're trying to survive," Dylan said quietly. "Commander, I don't know how Zeltharian biology works, but humans don't regenerate. We can't regrow limbs or organs. We can't naturally repair genetic damage or heal from diseases that attack our DNA. So we had to invent medicine that works differently." Pelnox pulled up more files, his face growing paler with each one. "Sir, look at this. Half the crew has been surgically modified. Mechanical implants, artificial organs, prosthetic limbs." The data showed crew member after crew member with modifications that would horrify any civilized species. Lieutenant Brian Hayes had a mechanical heart after his natural one failed. Engineer Rachel Davis had artificial lungs. Dr. Kevin Morris had lost both legs in an accident and now used advanced prosthetics controlled directly by his nervous system. "They're turning themselves into machines," Pelnox said. "We're staying alive," Dylan corrected. "Look, I get that this seems extreme to you, but for humans, this is normal. We've been doing surgery for thousands of years. We've been using medicine that would poison most species for centuries. It's how we survive." Zalketh looked at his medical officer, who was reviewing the data with mounting horror. "Analysis? Sir, the Zeltharians have regenerative biology. We heal naturally from almost any injury. Our immune systems adapt to diseases within hours. Our bodies simply fix themselves." The officer pointed at the human data. "They don't have any of that. Their bodies break and stay broken unless they intervene manually. So they cut, burn, poison, and rebuild, whatever it takes." "But why would evolution create such a fragile species?" Zalketh asked. Evolution doesn't care about fragile, Dylan said. It only cares about survival. And humans are really, really good at surviving. We just do it differently than you. Zalketh stared at the data. These weren't war criminals. They were desperate survivors of a species that fought against their own biology every single day. But that didn't make them any less dangerous. Captain Roberts, even if your intentions are peaceful, you possess the knowledge and materials to create devastating biological weapons. You have crew members who are part organic, part machine. You practice medicine that would kill most species. Zalketh paused. How can we trust that you won't use these capabilities against others? Because we're doctors, not soldiers, Dylan replied. Well, we're also soldiers, but primarily doctors. We save lives. That's the whole point. Before Zalketh could respond, an urgent transmission came through. One of the Zeltharian colonies in the sector was reporting an emergency, some kind of outbreak. People were dying, and they needed help immediately. The transmission from Colony Theta 9 crackled with panic. Medical Officer Brentalk's face appeared on screen, his usually calm demeanor completely shattered. Commander Zalketh, we have a crisis. Unknown pathogen spreading through the civilian population. Over 3,000 infected in the last 6 hours. Our medical systems can't identify it, can't stop it. People are dying and we don't know why. Zalketh felt a cold suspicion settle in his gut. He looked at the human ship surrounded by his battle group. Theta 9, when did symptoms first appear? Approximately 14 hours ago. Right around the time the Nomad entered the sector. Zalketh's jaw tightened. Captain Roberts, did your ship release any biological agents in this sector? Dylan looked genuinely shocked. What? No. We're a medical research vessel, not bioterrorists. We don't release pathogens. Then explain the timing. You enter our space, and suddenly a colony has an unknown plague. Send us the medical data. Dylan said urgently. Let our doctors look at it. If there's a connection, we need to know. Zalketh hesitated. Sharing medical data with the humans meant giving them more information about Zeltharian biology. But people were dying. He authorized the transfer. The Nomad's crew worked for 6 straight hours analyzing the data. Zalketh watched through the scan as human doctors huddled over displays, running tests, arguing about theories. Finally, Captain Roberts contacted him again. Commander, we know what this is. It's not a weapon. It's a naturally mutated strain of Zeltharian seasonal flu. That's impossible. Our immune systems handle seasonal flu automatically. It's harmless. Usually, yes, Dylan agreed. But this mutation bypassed your standard immune response. It happens in species with regeneration-based biology. Every few thousand years, a common pathogen mutates in a way that your bodies don't recognize as a threat until it's already widespread. Can you cure it? Dylan's expression turned serious. Yes, but Commander, you need to understand something first. Our medicine is going to look really bad to you. Really, really bad. If you let us help, you need to trust us and not interfere. Can you do that? Zalketh thought about the 3,006 Zeltharians. The number was climbing. Do what you must. The Nomad dispatched a medical team to Colony Theta 9. Zalketh sent observers to monitor everything they did. What those observers reported back made him wish he'd never agreed. Dr. Kevin Morris led the human medical team. He was the one with the prosthetic legs that the scan had revealed. He walked into the colony's main hospital and immediately started issuing orders that made the Zeltharian doctors recoil in horror. We need to set up an isolation ward. Separate the infected from the healthy population. Then we start treatment immediately. What kind of treatment? A Zeltharian doctor asked nervously. Kevin pulled out equipment from his medical cases. Syringes, chemical compounds, portable radiation devices. We're going to use a 3-phase approach. First, we inject patients with a weakened version of the virus itself. Their immune systems will recognize the threat and learn to fight it. You want to infect sick people with more of the disease? The Zeltharian doctor looked horrified. It's called vaccine. It works. Kevin didn't wait for approval. He started preparing doses. The second phase involved administering antiviral drugs. But these weren't gentle treatments. They were toxic compounds that killed both virus and healthy cells, relying on the body to regenerate the healthy tissue faster than the virus could spread. This will poison them, a Zeltharian nurse protested, watching Kevin inject the first patient. Yes, Kevin said calmly, but the virus will die before the patient does. Probably. We've calculated the dosage based on Zeltharian metabolism. It should work. Medicine isn't perfect. We do our best with what we know. The third phase was the most disturbing. For patients with severe infections, the humans used focused radiation to kill the virus in critical organs. Dr. Lisa Warren operated a portable radiation emitter, carefully targeting infected tissue, while Zeltharian doctor watched in absolute horror. "You're burning their organs," he shouted. "I'm killing the virus before it kills them," Lisa corrected. "The radiation destroys the infected cells. Their regeneration should handle the rest, if we calculated correctly. Look, your people regenerate. Ours don't. So we learned to work around that. We attack problems directly, aggressively, because we can't wait for bodies to heal themselves. You can regenerate through this. Trust the process." Zalketh's observers sent continuous reports. The human methods were brutal, primitive, terrifying. They were literally poisoning and irradiating sick people. Some Zeltharian medical staff refused to help, calling it barbaric torture. But after 48 hours, something remarkable happened. The infection rates stopped climbing. The sick started recovering. The death toll, which had been rising steadily, leveled off and then began to decline. The human butchery was working. Dr. Kevin Morris compiled a report and sent it to Zalketh. "Commander, your medical systems are incredibly advanced for maintaining health in a regenerative species, but they're not designed for aggressive threats. Your people's immune systems wait for the body to heal naturally. That works great until you encounter something that spreads faster than you can regenerate. And your medicine? We don't have regeneration, so we develop medicine that attacks problems head-on. We use the body's own immune response against infections by teaching it what to fight. We use toxic chemicals that kill diseases faster than they kill the patient. We use radiation to burn out infections. It's not pretty, but it keeps us alive." Zalketh reviewed the colony reports. 3,000 infected, 73 dead, all before the humans arrived. After treatment began, only 2 more deaths, both patients who were too far gone when treatment started. The rest were recovering. "Your methods saved them," Zalketh admitted quietly. "Our methods are brutal," Kevin agreed. "But they work. Commander, you should know something else. We reviewed your medical databases while treating patients. You have almost no experience with aggressive pathogen control because your regeneration usually handles everything. But what happens when it doesn't?" "What do you mean?" "This mutation caught you by surprise. You had no protocols for fast-moving diseases. Your medical staff didn't know how to respond when regeneration failed." Kevin looked directly at the camera. "You're not prepared for the kind of threats that can't be regenerated away. We are, because we've been fighting those threats since we first learned to use fire to clean wounds and sharp stones to cut out infections." Zalketh understood then what he'd really scanned when he looked inside the Nomad. Not weapons, not crimes, but a completely different philosophy of survival. Humans didn't wait for their bodies to heal. They forced healing through aggression, through calculated violence against disease itself. And that was somehow more disturbing than any weapon could ever be. The standoff at Colony Theta 9 continued for 3 days after the outbreak was controlled. Zalketh kept the Nomad surrounded by warships, though now he wasn't sure if it was to protect the galaxy from the humans or protect the humans from the galaxy. Admiral Threncole arrived personally on the 4th day. She reviewed every detail of the medical intervention, watched footage of the treatments, read the final reports. Then she called a meeting with Zalketh and Captain Dylan Roberts. "I've reviewed everything," Threncole said, her expression unreadable. "Captain Roberts, your methods are disturbing. Poisoning sick people, burning tissue with radiation, deliberately infecting patients to teach their immune systems. By any civilized standard, what you did should be considered torture. Dylan nodded slowly. I understand how it looks to you, Admiral. But it worked. You saved thousands of lives using techniques our medical establishment would never approve. She paused. And that terrifies me. Why? Dylan asked. Because if you're willing to do this to save people, what would you do to harm them? Friend Cole pulled up data on her display. I've been reading about human history. Your wars. Your conflicts. You've used biological weapons before, haven't you? Dylan's jaw tightened. Yes. In our past, some nations developed and used biological weapons. It was a dark period in our history. We banned them centuries ago through international agreements. But you still have the knowledge, the capability. Every one of your medical researchers could theoretically weaponize their work. So could yours, Dylan countered. Any advanced medicine can be turned into a weapon. The difference is choice. We choose to heal. Zalketh had been quiet, but now he spoke up. Admiral, I've been thinking about this. The humans aren't the threat. The threat is what happens when regenerative species like us encounter diseases we can't handle. We were completely unprepared. If the humans hadn't been here, thousands would have died. Thren Cole finished. I know, but that doesn't change the fact that humanity possesses dangerous knowledge. Before anyone could respond, another alert came through, this time from a different colony. And then another, and another. The mutated virus was spreading across multiple Zeltharian worlds simultaneously. What started as an isolated outbreak was now a sector-wide pandemic. How is this possible? Thren Cole demanded. We quarantine Theta 9. Dr. Kevin Morris, monitoring from the Nomad, answered. Because it's not just on Theta 9. This mutation probably started weeks ago, spreading slowly through your population. Your immune systems didn't flag it as a threat, because it mimics normal flu until it's already established. Theta 9 was just the first place where people got sick enough to notice. How many infected? Across 5 colonies? Conservatively? 500,000, maybe more. The command center went silent. 500,000 Zeltharians. The Nomad only had a medical team of 20 humans. There was no way they could treat everyone. We need to share your treatment protocols with our medical staff immediately, Thren Cole said. Train them in your methods. Dylan shook his head. Admiral, with respect, your doctors can't do this. We tried teaching them on Theta 9. They refused. They couldn't bring themselves to inject poison into patients or use radiation on sick people. It goes against everything they've been trained to believe. Then what do you suggest? Let's call for help. Earth has thousands of medical ships. We can have teams here within a week. Enough to handle all 5 colonies and any others that report outbreaks. Thren Cole looked at Zalketh. You've been with them the longest. Can we trust them? Zalketh thought about everything he'd seen. The brutal medicine. The mechanical augmentations. The volunteers who let themselves be experimented on because they'd rather risk death trying to live than accept their fate. I think the question isn't whether we can trust them, he said slowly. It's whether we can afford not to. They saved Theta 9. They're offering to save the rest. What's our alternative? The Admiral made her decision. Contact Earth. Request medical assistance. Full diplomatic immunity for their personnel. Dylan immediately opened channels to Earth. Within hours, medical ships began arriving in the sector. Not warships. Pure medical vessels, painted with bright red crosses that humans apparently used to mark hospitals. But Zalketh noticed something. Each medical ship had an escort, human military vessels, armed and ready, not threatening but present. Captain Roberts, why the military escorts? He asked. Dylan looked at him seriously. Because we're about to send thousands of our people into a foreign sector to practice medicine that terrifies you. We need to know they're safe. That if your people panic and decide our doctors are torturers instead of healers, someone will protect them. We wouldn't. Wouldn't you? 2 days ago, you had me surrounded with 30 warships because you thought we were bioterrorists. Now you're desperate enough to accept our help. But what happens when the crisis is over? When you remember how disturbing our methods are, Dylan's expression hardened. Humans learned a long time ago that gratitude is temporary. Safety is permanent. So yes, the medical ships have escorts. Over the next 2 weeks, human medical teams worked across 5 Zoltharian colonies. They set up field hospitals, trained local staff who could stomach their methods, treated hundreds of thousands of patients with their aggressive, brutal, effective medicine. And Zalketh watched. He saw human doctors working 18-hour shifts, collapsing from exhaustion, then getting up and working again. He saw them cry when they lost patients and celebrate when they saved them. He saw them treat every Zoltharian life like it mattered as much as human lives. The real weapon wasn't their medicine. It wasn't their technology or their knowledge. It was their absolute refusal to give up, their determination to fight death itself, no matter the odds. Their willingness to do whatever it took, cut, burn, poison, rebuild, to keep people alive. And Zalketh realized that if humanity ever decided to turn that determination against an enemy instead of against death, no force in the galaxy could stop them. That was the real horror. Not what humans did, but what they could do if they chose to. 3 weeks after the outbreak began, the last Zoltharian patient was declared recovered. The final death toll stood at 891. Tragic, but nowhere near the catastrophic numbers it could have been. Human medical teams had treated over 470,000 patients across 5 colonies using methods that still made Zoltharian doctors uncomfortable to watch. Admiral Thren Cole stood in the medical bay on Colony Theta 9, watching human doctors pack their equipment. Dr. Kevin Morris was supervising, his prosthetic legs moving with perfect mechanical precision as he checked inventory lists. Dr. Morris, the Admiral called out. A moment. Kevin turned, looking tired. He'd been working almost nonstop for 3 weeks. Admiral, what can I do for you? I wanted to thank you. Personally, you saved my people. She hesitated. And I wanted to apologize for how we treated you at first. We thought you were monsters. Kevin smiled sadly. We understand. Our medicine is monstrous by your standards. We inject toxins into sick people. We deliberately break bones to set them properly. We cut out pieces of ourselves to remove disease. It's horrifying if you're not used to it. Why do you do it? Why not develop gentler methods? Because gentle doesn't always work. Human bodies don't regenerate like yours. When something breaks, it stays broken unless we fix it manually. So we learn to be aggressive, precise, brutal when necessary. He paused, but never cruel. There's a difference. Thren Cole nodded slowly. I'm issuing new protocols for Zoltharian space. Human medical vessels will no longer be subject to deep scans. The knowledge of what's inside is too disturbing for most of my people. Better that they don't know the details. You're going to stop scanning us? Only the medical ships. We'll still inspect for weapons and contraband, but we won't look too closely at your methods anymore. What you do to survive is your business. The directive went out the next day. Zoltharian inspection crews were prohibited from conducting full deep scans on human medical vessels. Surface scans only. Enough to verify they weren't carrying actual weapons, but not enough to see the brutal details of human medicine. But word had already spread. The story of what happened in the Andromeda sector reached other species within days. How humans had saved thousands using medicine that looked like torture. How they poisoned and burned their own patients and called it healing. Some species were horrified. The Hendari collective issued statements condemning human medical practices as barbaric. They demanded the Galactic Medical Council investigate and potentially ban certain human procedures. Other species were fascinated. The Karathi, whose warriors often suffered injuries their medicine couldn't fix, sent requests to Earth asking for information about prosthetic technology. If humans could replace broken limbs with mechanical ones and keep fighting, the Karathi wanted to learn how. The Yaltan, still grateful from the Prometheus incident, offered to fund human medical research. They saw potential in techniques that didn't rely on natural regeneration. And a few species, the desperate ones with medical problems their own systems couldn't solve, reached out quietly. Terminal patients willing to endure human brutality for a chance to survive. Captain Dylan Roberts received dozens of requests for medical assistance. His small research vessel had become unexpectedly famous, or infamous, depending on who you asked. "We're getting calls from across the galaxy," Lieutenant Katie Walsh reported, reviewing the messages. "Some want help. Some want us banned. Some want to study our methods. We're kind of controversial now." Dylan laughed. "We went from suspected bioterrorists to controversial doctors in 3 weeks. That's got to be some kind of record." "What do we tell them?" "Tell the ones who need help that we'll do what we can. Tell the ones who want to ban us that they're welcome to try. And tell the ones who want to study our methods to prepare for some serious culture shock." Commander Zalketh visited the Nomad before it left Zeltharian space. He found Dylan on the bridge, reviewing star charts for their next patrol route. "Captain Roberts, I wanted to speak with you before you left." "Commander, come make sure we're really leaving." "No, I came to say thank you." Zalketh looked uncomfortable. "And to admit I was wrong. I thought you were carrying weapons. I suppose in a way you are, but they're weapons against death, not against life." Dylan smiled. "I'll take that as a compliment." "It is one. Captain, I've been doing inspections for 23 years. I've scanned thousands of ships, but I've never seen anything like what's inside yours. The determination, the refusal to accept defeat, the willingness to do whatever it takes to survive." He paused. "It's terrifying, but it's also inspiring." "Inspiring? My people have relied on our regeneration for so long that we've forgotten how to fight for survival. We thought our biology made us superior. Then a disease came along that our bodies couldn't handle, and we were helpless. But your people, you've been fighting biology since the beginning. You never had the luxury of regeneration, so you learned to survive anyway." Dylan nodded. "That's what humans do. We adapt. We overcome. We refuse to die quietly." The Nomad undocked from the station that afternoon. As it prepared to jump to hyperspace, Dylan sent one final message to Zalketh. "Commander, you asked me once what our real weapon was. It's not our medicine. It's not our technology. It's our stubbornness. We're a species that looked at death and said, no thanks. Everything else, the surgery, the drugs, the prosthetics, the brutal treatments, that's just how we enforce that decision." Across the galaxy, the story continued to spread. The species had scanned a human medical ship and discovered that humanity's greatest strength wasn't physical power or advanced weapons. It was their absolute refusal to accept the inevitable. Species that had never questioned their own medical practices started asking uncomfortable questions. What happened when their natural healing failed? What would they do when they encountered problems their biology couldn't solve? The humans had answers. Disturbing answers. Brutal answers. But answers that worked. And that was more terrifying than any weapon in the galaxy. The Zeltharian Directive became an unofficial rule across multiple sectors. Don't deep scan human medical vessels. Some knowledge is too disturbing to possess. Better not to know what humans do to themselves in the name of survival. Because once you know, you'll never look at them the same way again. You'll see their scars and wonder what battles they fought. You'll see their prosthetics and imagine what they lost. You'll see their calm faces and realize they're all survivors of a war against mortality itself. And if you ever make an enemy of them, you'll lie awake wondering, if they're willing to cut themselves open and poison themselves just to stay alive, what would they be willing to do to you? The ESS Nomad continued its patrol, carrying its doctors, its researchers, its volunteers, and its brutal, beautiful determination to fight death on every front. And the galaxy learned to be grateful that humans had chosen to be healers, because the alternative was unthinkable. The end.